Call to order a regular meeting of the Normal Local Liquor Commission for Monday, January 6th, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos? Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings?
Here.
Mr. Nord?
Call to order
Smith?
a
Here.
regular
Mrs. Lorenz?
meeting of
Here.
the
Mr.
Normal
Preston?
Local Liquor Commission. And
For
the first
Monday,
order of
January
business is
6th,
approval of the minutes of the
2020.
regular
Please
meeting
call the
from
roll.
October
Mayor Coos?
21st, 2019. Do we
Mr.
have any
McCarthy?
adjustments? Aye.
Mrs. Cummings?
Here.
Second.
Mr. Nord?
Please call the roll.
Smith?
A
Here.
regular
Mrs. Lorenz?
meeting of
Here.
the
Mrs.
Normal
Cummings?
Local
Aye.
Liquor
Mr.
Commission.
Nord? Ms. Smith?
Aye.
And for
Mrs.
first
Lorenz?
Monday, January 6th,
Mr.
approval of the
Preston?
minutes of the regular
Mr.
meeting
McCarthy?
from October
Mayor Coos?
21st, 2019. Do
Mr.
we have any
McCarthy?
adjustments? Carries.
Aye.
We have a number of
Second.
complaint
Please
call the roll. Case reports
Here.
to
Mrs.
share.
Lorenz?
Here.
We
Mrs.
have
Cummings?
Schnucks
Mr.
Market,
Nord?
Inc., DBA
Ms.
Schnucks,
Smith?
Aye.
Mr.
on
Lorenz?
October
Aye.
the 10th, 2019.
Mr. McCarthy?
Furnished alcohol to a person under age 21. We have a number of
Second.
entered complaint, and Commissioner Coos
Here.
to share imposed a fine of $500, which was agreed upon and has been paid. October 10th, 2019 are all related to an ongoing case and an update on the 35 Years LLC landmark Patriot Center in University Park. Imposed a fine of $500, which their agreed upon recollection for this item. Police audit of the license found that they were not serving adequate food or had food available for sale per their liquor license, and ongoing negotiations for the renewal of their Class O is underway. Agreed upon recollection. Next item of business we have is a liquor license application. License we have MHI Bloomington Normal HP OpCo LLC and ongoing negotiations for doing business as Hyatt Place. This is a new owner applying for the same license that the current owner had. We have they are continuing to do business as 200 Broadway as the former tenant and some materials were furnished a little bit late. Doing business as Hyatt Place. This is a new owner applying for the same license that the current owner had.
Just a
Yep, sorry.
I noticed that the approval is contingent upon the inspection reports.
Doing
Has
business
there
as
any
Hyatt
action
Place.
been taken that
Do I have a motion?
is a concern to wait upon these inspection reports?
No, it's a standard.
Standard, okay, thank you.
Yep, sorry. Once they've passed those inspections, final inspections
Approval
per
is
occupancy,
contingent
then
upon the inspection
the permits are
reports.
issued.
Has there any
Have I got that right,
that
Mr. Day?
is a
Yes, that's
concern
typically
to wait
formality,
upon these
particularly with
inspection reports?
No, it's a
various
standard.
building code
Standard, okay.
things that they have to meet or
Once they've passed those inspections, final inspections
Thank you.
There's
per
nothing.
occupancy, then the
No
permits are issued.
renovations or anything of that.
Have I got that right,
Thank you.
Mr. Day?
yes,
Please call the roll.
typically formality, particularly
Mr. Nord? Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston? Mrs. Cummings? Mr. McCarthy?
Final inspections.
Thank you.
And the license
No
carries.
renovation.
We have another liquor license application from American Multimedia, or Multi-Cinema, excuse me, Inc., doing business as AMC Normal.
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Uh,
Mrs.
They
Cummings?
have
Mr.
applied
McCarthy?
for a theater Class R license, along with related documents. And another liquor license application from similar stipulations, contingencies upon Multi-Health Cinema, excuse me, Inc. inspection as AMC Normal. I have a motion. They have
Second.
applied for, any comments? Theater Class R license. Please call the roll. Along with related
Ms. Smith?
documents. And
Aye.
another liquor
Mrs.
license
Lorenz?
application,
Aye.
Similar
Mr. Preston?
stipulations, contingencies
Mrs. Cummings?
Multi-Health
Mr.
Cinema.
Nord?
excuse me, Inc.
Mr. McCarthy?
As AMC Normal. Aye. I have a motion, and the motion carries. Applied for. I have a motion for adjournment. Theater Class R license. Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Please call the roll.
Lorenz?
Aye.
Similar
Mr. Preston?
stipulations, contingencies.
Mrs. Cummings? Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston? Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms.
Motion
Smith?
carries.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
I have a motion for adjournment. Aye. And the meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Smith? Aye.
Please, and we'll begin at about a 1 minute recess.
Mrs. Cummings? Mrs. Lorenz?
Regular town council
Mr.
meeting.
Preston? Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Carries.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Have a motion for adjournment? Aye. And the meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Smith? Aye.
Please, and we'll begin at about a 1 minute recess.
Mrs. Cummings? Mrs. Lorenz?
Regular town council
Mr.
meeting.
Preston? Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Carries.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Have a motion for adjournment? Aye. And the meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Smith? Aye.
Please, and we'll begin at about a 1 minute recess.
Cummings? Mrs. Lorenz?
Regular town council
Mr.
meeting.
Preston? Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Carries.
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Have a motion for adjournment? Aye. And the meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Smith? Aye.
Please, and we'll begin at about a 1 minute recess.
Cummings? Mrs. Lorenz?
Regular town council meeting.
Mr. Preston? Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
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 Ms. Smith?
Carries.
Aye. Mr. McCarthy?
Aye. Call to order a regular meeting of the normal town council for Monday, January 6th, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus? Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Cummings? Here. Mr. Nord?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz? Here. Mr. Preston?
Call to order a regular meeting of the normal town council. Please join me in Monday, January 6th, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus? Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Cummings? Here. Mr. Nord?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz? Here. Mr. Preston?
Call to order a regular meeting of the normal town council. Please join me in Monday, January 6th, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus? Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Cummings? Here. Mr. Nord?
We have no one requesting to speak at public comment this evening, so we'll move right into the omnibus agenda. All items under the omnibus agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted under one motion unless a council person would like to remove an item for discussion. No one requesting to speak at public comment this evening, so we'll move right into the omnibus agenda. All items under the omnibus agenda are considered
I'd
to
like
be
to pull
routine
A
in
and B.
nature and will be enacted under one motion unless a council person would like
Clearing
to
the omnibus
remove an
agenda.
item. See, we have no omnibus agenda tonight. All right, we won't vote. So we'll move right into the omnibus agenda. All items under the first item is the approval of the minutes of the work session of December 6th, 2019. Remove an item of the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 16th, 2019. Mr. Nord.
I so move.
Second.
All right. All items under the first item is the approval of the
minutes for the work
session
session for
of
December 6th.
2019.
Ideally, it would be nice to have the
Regular
full report
16th,
included in the minutes, but I understand it's not ready. So,
Second.
All right. All items under the first
do you know
item
when it will be ready?
the approval of the
Minutes for the work
I
session for
don't know a
December
specific date,
6th.
Mr. Nord. The
Ideally,
full
it would be-
report is generally published, and it's put into like booklet format. So it's quite a lengthy document. We typically don't include that entire document in the minutes. But when we receive the report from Mr. Summick, my anticipation and my expectation is we should have something from him in the next couple of weeks. I contacted his office over the weekend to find out the status, and he's traveling right now, so I expect to hear from him tomorrow.
Okay. It was almost a 2-day meeting. So I would like at a future council meeting, whenever that document's ready, if we could announce to the public where they could go look at it, because there's a lot of interest since it was right after the Citizens Summit. And I want to let the community know that we did listen to them.
Sure. We'll make sure and post that document on the council webpage.
Okay. And if we could also then verbalize it at a meeting as well. Great. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings? Aye. Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye. And the motion carries. Item B, a report to receive and file a town of normal expenditures for payments as of January the 1st, 2020. Mr. Nord.
I so move.
Nord.
Just a couple. The Uptown Business Association, we contributed $10,000. And Ms. Reese, your response was that we also do other in-kind donations as well. I understand we support because we are here in the Uptown. Is our contribution, is it proportionate to the other members of that association?
I can't answer that with certainty because I don't know what everyone else is paying, honestly. My assumption is we pay probably a pretty sizable share of the budget. We also do provide in-kind services, but I don't know their specific budget. I don't have that with me, so I'm.
Okay. Do we offer something similar to other businesses outside of Uptown? As far as contributing to their business associations?
I don't believe so, but I'm unaware of other business associations. Obviously, we're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and we support the Economic Development Council, but the Uptown Partners is the only business association I'm familiar with.
Okay. We've been doing this since 2012. At some point in the future, I would kind of like to see the town transition away from subsidizing the marketing expenses for a business association, so the business could pay for those on their own. Then the next
Before
item
you
I
go on,
had-
Mr. Nord, I'd just interrupt for a point of information. The city of Bloomington has a very similar downtown business association that it heavily subsidized and helped staff for years, and has just recently, in the last 12 to 18 months, taken that department, that business association, fully in-house, and now is an operational unit of the city of Bloomington. Clearly, the city of Bloomington recognizes that promoting their downtown business district, central core business district, to bring people in generates a lot of revenue, traffic, visitors, hotel stays, et cetera. And so, much akin the same way, I'm not suggesting that we go in that direction, but clearly communities close to us and all around us invest in similar type things because of the attraction, the potential revenue generation, the marketing, the tourism opportunities that attracting people to our core business district. So I don't know what the city of Bloomington pays for all of that, bringing that in-house, but I'm happy that ours is limited to the amount that it is.
Sure.
But before you went on, I just wanted to share that.
Which I think that's something good for the town to contribute to, but maybe through the tourism group, so they could do it more as a coordinated effort. But moving on to the next one, the Chamber of Commerce membership that we pay for. I understand this is something we're opting to do, and we're volunteering. We are volunteering to pay this membership. It's not something that they have asked us for funding for. I just see this as somewhat of a conflict of interest because the chamber, it's a paid membership for businesses, and the chamber lobbies us for money. They actively endorse political candidates. So by us being a member, I know I'm kind of maybe axing myself from being endorsed by them in the future, but it seems like there's a conflict of interest there. And it seems like it would just be cleaner if the chamber needs money, they come and ask for us, we grant it, we give it to them, but we don't voluntarily give them more than what's needed and asked for.
Okay, appreciate that. I certainly, if council decides that we shouldn't be members of the Chamber of Commerce, we can cancel our membership. In terms of funding the chamber, I believe the only thing we funded was workforce development, which was at the last agenda. So I think we've all determined that was a program in support of our community and our business community that we valued, which is why we recommended support for workforce development. In regard to the PAC, we had some email exchanges. The Chamber of Commerce does have a political action committee, which I should say is a separate entity. It is under the chamber umbrella, but it has a separate board of directors. So I would defer to legal counsel on whether or not that is any kind of a conflict for the town to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. We have a very long history of being a member of the Chamber of Commerce, even when I think the Normal had its own Chamber of Commerce. So is there a conflict?
Right, no, as long as it's separate. I mean, the conflict or the problem we'd run into is if our money were going into the PAC to be used for those political purposes, and they very purposefully keep that segregated so that any of the town's money isn't going into the PAC that would be used for improper purposes.
And we do find, generally, we have found value in the Chamber of Commerce membership because we are a significant employer. And we do attend their events and we learn from other employers as well. So, but again, if council finds that membership to not be of value, we can terminate our membership.
Ms. Smith?
So for clarification, just as unions service their members with dues, but have to establish a separate organizational structure for any political activism, the chamber has that same structure.
As I understand it, yes.
Okay,
Their
thank you.
website does indicate an entire board, separate board and structure for the PAC.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye. And item B carries. Next item up for consideration is a resolution conditionally approving a final development plan, Phase 3 of the J&M Planned Unit Development on Cottage Avenue.
I move this item.
Thank you.
Second.
This is more for information and clarification because I understand from email exchanges back and forth with Ms. Reese that I was interested in whether or not the development had any inclusion of units that would accommodate disabled tenants and/or what was the mix of apartments that might be intended for low-income residents. And my understanding is that our action on the planned unit development does not address those issues, but it's more a matter of if citizens are concerned about these matters, at what stage and how can they get involved in the planning?
Sure, and I'll
Sure.
defer to Mr. Trumbull
No,
and Ms.
good
Davidson.
questions, Ms. Smith. I can only speak to the accessibility element of the two questions you did pose. And so by definition, these are considered 1 and 2 family or single family. And so by pure scoping, they're not subject to the accessibility code requirements. Okay, now I will say this, that there's what I would call is like a goodwill effort in their design is that they are free of steps. And so essentially, as you go from the garage into the front door, there's no steps that you encounter. The entry doors are sized appropriately for accessible access. The garage, the garage is the entry between the garage itself and into the home are also free of steps. So I think there was a definite attempt to, that doesn't make them accessible, but it certainly anticipates maybe either an older populace or maybe somebody with a disability would make it easier for them to negotiate those units. As far as the, like the rent offerings and that kind of thing, I'm not really in a position to say. I don't know if Mercy, if you talked with anybody with First Sight today or?
No.
No, okay. And I know Ms. Begley from the developer's attorney is the president as well, in case other questions pop up, so.
But if a developer is pursuing apartments that would be servicing a larger population because they are high residential units in terms of quantity of potential residents, at what stage can we ask that they consider making these accommodations?
Oh, yeah, no, that, again, a very good question. It's a kind of an apples and oranges thing, because these are not by definition apartments. These are, they're rentals, but they're essentially constructed as independent duplex buildings. And so The next step beyond a duplex would be 3 units or more. Any building of 3 units or more, the Illinois Accessibility Code and the building code steps in and says certain percentages and certain elements of the construction have to meet accessibility requirements. So this is really just it's a single-family development, essentially. It's rental, but it's not subject to the accessibility requirements.
So unless you have that mix that would incorporate more than duplexes, so 3 or more in a structure or in a complex?
Well, it could be 3 or more in just a simple structure. It depends on the unit configuration. And so if they're just flats, essentially where the unit is built at grade, then essentially the entry into the building and some basic sizing on the inside of the dwelling units have to be made adaptable. And then certainly when you get into bigger complexes where there are 14, 15 buildings and maybe 100 units, then there are percentages where actually a certain number of units have to be built fully accessible. Grab bars in the bathrooms, no thresholds, outlet heights, switch heights, and that kind of thing.
And information about all of that happens at the zoning meetings or
Well,
the
what-
planning meetings?
Well, what Greg is talking about is really
These are
building
buil-
code.
these are building
It's a
code
building
issues.
code issue.
Yeah.
So our zoning code does not have any requirement for accessibility. That's not to say it couldn't. I mean, some communities will do that, and as part of a planned unit development, I suppose one could bring that up as a design, part of the conversation. It hasn't since I've been here, but definitely from, like, the building code is not negotiable. So once a project gets approved through the planning commission, the building code applies, no matter
Okay.
what. Yeah,
So by default, the building code would see that is taking place?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I just needed that clarification because I'm aware from Vasu's report on housing that we do have a need for more low-income housing and actually disabled access
Absolutely. Yep.
units as well. Thank you.
Anything further? Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
And the motion carries. As we have no items of general order of new business, before I entertain a motion for adjournment, do we have any comments or concerns? Ms. Smith?
First of all, happy Feast of the Epiphany. It is the 12th day of Christmas, and a reminder to get your trees out to the curb. That pickup is beginning, but the leaf pickup is over. And I wanted to be sure everyone was aware as well that a budget session is scheduled for Thursday, January 16th, which is next week, before our next council meeting at 9 a.m. in these chambers. And it is a work session where town staff will be providing information and recommendation about the operating budget for the next 1 and 5 years. There's no motions, no formal actions, but it's an opportunity for the council to ask questions, bring up their own concerns and suggestions. It is subject to the Open Meetings Act, and in speaking with Ms. Reese, there are plans to live stream it.
Yes, that is true.
And will it also be recorded for viewing after?
Yes.
So anyone who doesn't want to tie up all of Thursday can partake of it at their own schedule.
And that will be available on the town's website. Last year's budget work session is still available on the website as well, too.
Mr. Nord?
I just have a couple things. One, Normal has a lot to offer. I mean, a lot to offer. I kind of get criticized sometimes that I talk about the negative. Well, Normal has far more good things than bad things, but I'm here to kind of help point out the things that I feel and the people that contact me feel need adjusted. So please don't insinuate or think that whenever I'm pointing these out that I dislike Normal. The reason I'm fighting is because I love Normal so much. All right. After the Citizen Summit, one of the attendees wrote a letter. I'm not sure if everyone got it, but you may have. And I wanted to read it because we voted the minutes in tonight. I was one of the participants at this meeting. I enjoyed the meeting and hope for many of the ideas to be used in the planning process. What I heard where I was sitting, as well as the conversations with other participants after the meeting was over: 1, lower debt; 2, 100% coverage by 2040 of the police and fire retirement funds; 3, stop concentrating the spending in the uptown area and concentrate on the rest of Normal; 4, more spending on infrastructure; 5, the underpass and sports complex are not good projects; 6, continue to work with Bloomington and the county. My opinion on other issues: sales tax in Normal has remained flat, with the exception of the recent tax rate increase. 2, local economy is changing with the transfer of many State Farm employees, and more transfers are planned. The relocations have had an effect on the total economy due to less upscale income residents. Thus, less sales tax, property values decrease, and a need to increase the real estate tax factor due to lower assessed values. 3, tax factors continue to rise over the last 7 years in Normal. 4, there is a need to control spending and let the dust settle before going forward with any future developments. In summary, I am hoping that the Normal Council will take all of the above into consideration as they move forward on their planning for the future. Then, after the meeting, or at the meeting that was after the Citizen Summit, our work group meeting, there are just a couple things that I wanted to highlight that came out of it. There were all these goals that we talked about and different priorities with each goal. Some of them that I wanted to highlight, and these will all be in the book that's going to be published whenever we get it back from the consultant. But throughout several of these goal topics, a reoccurring high-ranking priority was improved collaboration with the city of Bloomington. So I hope that that means more of the joint meetings and that the different town departments will work more with the city departments or with their counterparts in the city departments. Then we talked about, another one was the high priority Uptown 2020 action items. And these were the 5 priorities that we voted on as a group for 2020. Subletting the second floor of One Uptown. Finding a renter for the first floor of One Uptown. Underpass, defining a direction. Trail East, what's the next step? Uptown parking management. And I don't know, we went over 2 days worth of doing this, so there is a lot of information out there. Those that attended the summit, please, when it's available, look at it, because some of the ideas that the community voiced to us were included, and that's just what I wanted to put out there.
Mr. Nord, if I could also point out, you identified some of the goals that council talked about on Friday, December 6th, but there were 5, actually, I should say you identified some of the priority projects. There were 5 goals, though, and of each of the goals, there were at least 5 to 7 priority projects. So you highlighted some, and the minutes were very general, but there's a whole lot more lot more projects that will be identified in
There is a book this thick of it, so, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that while you gave a little snippet of some of the things, there's a whole lot more that will be identified as high and top priority projects for 2020 and 2021.
Hello.
Lorenz.
Yes, just in response to Councilmember Nord's highlighting of the citizens' letter that came to all of us and was also published in the Pantograph as a letter to the editor. And I took some time over the holiday to write back to this particular resident. I thought he had outlined his questions and concerns really well. And so, true to my nature to not be the most brief person in the world, I wrote him back a 9.5 paragraph email, to which he responded fairly quickly and thanked me for that letter. He was going to read it and kind of digest it. and said that I had given him some things to think about, and after some thought, he would be back in touch. He commented that my response was the most detailed information he'd ever received from anyone on council. So I'll wear that as a badge of honor. But at any rate, I do find this particular person's structuring of his questions and concerns really constructive, and so I have forwarded it with what I thought was a very detailed response. And, you know, that's the kind of dialogue that I think I'm speaking for all of us, love to get engaged with. So thank you for highlighting.
Just a couple of comments before I take a motion for adjournment. Ms. Smith and I clearly are on the same thought pattern, trees and leaves. I do want to mention one other thing. I just got a question over the weekend about, can anybody just go door to door and knock on my door and try to sell me some stuff? Actually, no. There is an approved, updated, routinely list of door-to-door vendors that are allowed to knock on your door. The town does a great job posting those on Facebook as well as the website. So if you have any questions, you can also ask for their credentials directly. They should have an approved credential from the town of Normal saying that they're allowed to knock on your door, and should present that should you ask them. So that's out there and available as well. Just one thing I wanted to highlight from some of the comments about work sessions, about the town and the city working together. I think every strategic planning session I've been in since I've been on council, and so much of the conversation is about us working together. I do want to point out, I think we have 48 intergovernmental agreements between the city of Bloomington and the town of Normal, and a tremendous amount of work goes on between our operational units. Not as much happens between us council and regular routine meetings, and I agree, more would be good. But there's a tremendous amount of cooperation that does happen between the two cities. Our fire departments back each other up, our police back each other up, Public Works and Streets work very well together. Leaf collection times, we try to borrow each other's people and stuff sometimes between. So there is a lot that happens, but we can always do more. With that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye, we are adjourned.